It's on exhibit.
Okay.
It's actually loaded. It's up in the jail, in the body of the contract.
Okay.
Is Sherry Chapo here? Okay, there you go. I'm sorry, Sherry.
Okay.
You ready? I didn't see you come in, I apologize.
Am I allowed to sit?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm here about, I threw this up for the council last week. And I talked with Celeste yesterday. This was supposed to have been an itemized invoice that helped to support Ralph Armand's.
No, not an invoice, a request.
This was his request.
A request.
Okay. And then I was informed that you weren't supposed to give this to me as a public record.
Right.
Is that correct? Okay. If you can look on here, I'm assuming that these are all employees of the health department. Here's Ralph. This is written Ralph Armand here. Celeste also told me yesterday that this is her handwriting for calculations. So I've had a real hard time understanding what these numbers might mean. And as you look at this, you can see some of these just have numbers, and some of these have a number with a V and then an H, assuming that's 57 days and 3 hours. And the same thing here. And even within a vacation, Ralph doesn't say anything, it says 101. I don't know if that's 101 hours, 101 days. I don't know what fed this particular request right here. And what I've asked for is a substantiation on the employee's time cards in order to do that. I have been denied because I'm told it's part of the personnel record, and that's not true. There is personal identifiable information on the time card, then that would be redacted. That the hours that he's worked that has fed his service card would be a public record. And I've asked to have these hours substantiated. The other thing that bothers me here is overtime. Ralph is a salaried employee. You do address non-exempt and exempt employees in your handbook, but there's not a classification to know whether Ralph Armand was indeed exempt or not. So by going off of what his duties were instead of what his title is, according to federal labor law, he would be considered exempt. So he wouldn't necessarily be entitled to comp time or overtime. Celeste told me yesterday that there's how many hours here? 236.1 quarter, I guess these are supposed to be hours, which equates to 33.7 days. That was entirely for emergency management.
I said he was an emergency management person, and that salary person, if you are an emergency management person, the law states that you can have overtime, and that if it was a disaster, a declared disaster, which the tornado was this year and the flood was last year. So that's what those hours pertain to.
And that overtime would be in addition to what he's already allocated, which is 35 hours a week. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so what I've asked for is to substantiate those hours. I'm having a real difficult time understanding how someone could put 33.7 days in of overtime in addition to their regular time with those two events.
Well, it's very easy when you're an emergency management
Well,
person.
and it may be, but these numbers have not been.
Not on that piece of paper, but to us they have been.
But to me, as the public, it has not been.
Sherry, I explained to you that I had met with the State Board of Accounts attorney on this issue, and that personnel issue, that I can give you salary ordinances if it's by what position someone runs. And you and I talked about this, didn't we? Okay, and then, but once a document has a person's name on it, it goes into the personnel file, which payroll does, sick days, personal days, for any employee. That becomes a personal thing, and that is not part of the transparency.
Well, I beg to differ with you because I do have a public access ruling here that deals with time cards. And it talks about certain items that may be confidential that you would be subject to redact. But that doesn't mean that. The hours that feed him are a matter of public record. We have a right to substantiate what these have been claimed to have actually been earned. And you have not done that.
The county auditor's office has
Would you
confirmed
like
those, and also the commissioners sign off on payroll. And I offered you the state attorney's phone number when we talked on the phone.
No, you did not.
I did too.
You said it was a state board of accounts that were
And I met with
referred
the state
for the last 3
attorney, and I
months.
offered his phone number if you'd like to contact him.
Celeste, you did not, and I would, that doesn't have relevance right here with what we're saying. I'm here to the commissioners because they originally approved this. And I'm asking, when this first got advertised, I called Tom and I asked him what it was for because he said it was for the health department. Do you recall that conversation, Tom?
You asked me about $20,000 or something.
Yeah, and I said for the health department, do you know what that was for?
It was unemployment, what Celeste told me that was for.
Well, there was $1,500 that was listed for unemployment that I also had a question with, but it was the $20,000. So my question is did you ever see this invoice? This is
That's
what
not
this
an
is.
invoice, right?
This is a request.
It's a request.
And this was requested by Mr. Armand.
Right, but I did not pay off of that. Those notes will show that I did research and that he did not get paid his sick days, he did not get paid his certain personal days. Those notes were where I went and checked the records to make sure that he had worked those overtime days with disaster relief, and that's what that is.
And I'm asking for public access to review those, and I understand that you struck those other benefits there.
Right, that was my research paper.
That's your research, that's your opinion, that you are validating this request as a claim that is valid and ready to be paid. And Mr. Armand was already paid for this, correct?
Yes, it is.
What I'm asking is, did any of the commissioners ever see this as part of the system, or is it all put through on a bulk voucher that you guys just signed off on, and you've never seen this, you never had questions? You wouldn't think to ask any questions.
I haven't seen that particular
No,
form,
you
but I
wouldn't.
do see
We don't
claims.
I don't
Yeah.
see time cards.
Right.
They don't look at time cards.
Well, I'm not asking time cards. You're saying that this is a request
That
for
was my
payment.
personal document.
Let me break in for just a second. Mrs. Chapo, let's go ahead, and if you've got more to bring up, go ahead and bring it up, and then we can respond to
Well, I
these.
do.
Okay, that's fine.
This was her original request. These were the papers that I received in public access.
Is that a blow-up of that?
Yes, this
Okay.
is so that you could see that, because I had the council go within 7 heads to try to do this.
Okay.
This is everything that I was given in my records request here from Celeste.
Uh-huh.
This is where she had underlined, these were highlighted on hers as to
That's
the
my
reasons
research.
why you had researched and why you had invalidated. You still have not validated whether the vacation hours were hours or days, because you can't tell by this particular document what that is. Because if you look down here, there's others that have vacations that are listed as D and H, meaning days and hours. Any prudent person would look at this and say that this isn't complete, this
No,
doesn't
it's
give me
not
enough
complete.
information.
I didn't tell you it was complete.
But how could you pay the hours here based on this information was saying that there's
I
others?
researched it, that's
But
why
you
those
res-
numbers are on there, Sherry.
But you researched that and you haven't substantiated it to the public.
I have
This is a
to-
misappropriation. You have not substantiated
Sherry,
this.
Let's see.
Sherry, this is not also
I'm not
a
gonna debate it,
debate,
yeah.
and so we're not gonna answer
No.
questions. If you got this information, you may have questions about the information, that's not really a subject for the county commissioners.
Well, if they had actually approved this, and this is what I'm
Well,
asking,
you
they
just-
approved to
You
pay
didn't
this.
even ask a question.
I did. I asked them earlier. They hadn't seen this.
They paid a claim, okay? There's a process to object to claims. If you want to object to a claim, object to a
I
claim.
have been objecting, that's why I'm here, that's why I was
There's
at
a
the
legal
county commission.
process.
Well, there is, and we can go there, Will. I was trying to be nice here and try to bring this first to the council, and the council pointed the finger back to the commissioners. So I'm here at the commissioners as trying to be a nice civil taxpayer here to ask for you guys to be accountable for what you're doing with our dollars, and obviously, you're not willing to do that, so there are other avenues that we can take, and if that's the way you want to go, then be it on the record that that's how your county council, your solicitor, is advertising you to spend our tax dollars. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Okay, is there anything else?
Oh, I guess not.
Okay. And I do invite you to double check with the public access counselor on
I
anything
do.
that you have doubts about, and I would.
I can
would-
give you a copy
I-
right here of one that is
Well,
about this exact
pardon me,
case.
this particular case should be checked with.
Oh, it will.
And we do, I believe, have a telephone number for the public access counselor that we can provide Mrs. Chapo.
I don't need it.
You've got it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Well,
And I would like to remind you, Sheila, that we did review with you about the Form 99, which is the official document.
I asked for the
night,
but it's the 99A that is a public service record. That doesn't include all, you can redact anything that has to do with sick or FMLA, and that is the record that I'm requesting. That carries his accrual of his hours earned and used from the beginning to now. That is a
It's part
public
of his
record.
private personnel record like it is.
Is there anything else?
I had another question.
Okay.
And Mrs. Reed, you said that on the additional appropriations requested for Mr. Armand, that you had stricken that for the council
I did.
before last time. And there was a lot of confusion when I got up there because I had told them what I was there for. They weren't even aware that it was on the agenda, and you were gone last week because I understand that you were at the state conference.
It was.
And that's not where I'm going at with this, but by striking that, you said that it got transferred from being an additional appropriations to being a transfer.
When we found out what we had to pay Ralph, it was not budgeted money. We did not know Ralph was going to get fired. We had money that we had to come up with that was not in the budget, and when that happens, you appropriate money. Okay, you go for approval because we have to find additional money
I
to pay.
understand.
Well, I advertised that as an appropriation. And you advertise it 2 weeks before the event. Well, after I advertised it, Tammy, the interim administrator, came up with a very good idea and said, you know, we are down a payroll here, and they also had a nurse quit that they don't have to replace right away. She said, I have these 2 payrolls. Instead of appropriating money, we might be able to transfer some funds. I don't know if I can cover all of it, but I would like to try, which was a very wise thing to do. I had already advertised it, I can't take it back, but when it came time for the council to look at it, I had put a mark through the appropriation form that I had filled out that they normally vote on and sign on, because it's no longer valid. I was no longer asking the council to vote on additional money, because we were trying to transfer money, and then at the end of the year, if we have to appropriate money to make up whatever wasn't covered, at that time I would.
So how is the transfer treated? Does that have to be re-advertised?
Transfers do not have to be advertised when it's in the.
So was there a resolution that they signed to allow that transfer there, or nothing was required? Just because you struck it, how did that money get transferred?
Was it acted
It had-
upon by the county council?
Yeah.
At a public meeting?
But I wasn't there, so I honestly can't answer that to your question. I'm sorry. I
You don't know if they appropriated the transfer last week?
It's not an
You asked me
appropriation,
that.
it would be a transfer. and
The
it'd be in
transfer.
When a
minutes, it was
transfer,
approved.
the minutes would approve it, right.
Okay, and what about the $1,500 that Tom thought was, well, you thought it was all for unemployment, is what you said.
Yeah.
You were thinking not the 20,000, or the 1500.
The 20.
The 20,000.
Yeah.
Well, that was an unemployment for Ralph. That had nothing to do
That
with
was not
Ralph.
It's just that for health department.
So you understand this, the unemployment rate has doubled on us since we made our initial budget. Every department, as
Sure.
it's come up, I've had to go and appropriate money. The general funds had to do it, the health
Had
departments
nothing
had
to do with Mr.
Had nothing to do with
Armand's-
Mr. Armand at all. It was covering all employees'
But you thought the
unemployment.
$20,000 was unemployment. Is that what you just
Oh,
said?
yeah.
No,
You told me the 20,000 was
no,
for
the 1,500, whatever it was, I'm sorry, I do not have it in front of me, was for the unemployment increase. The 20,000 was to cover Ralph's final pay, what the county owed him.
Well, and this is why
And I'm sorry, Sherry, I wasn't at the last meeting. If I would have been at the last meeting, a lot of this would have been clear, but I was at a state meeting, I had no choice.
Well, and I don't fault you for that, but what I'm saying is that there's a lack of communication. When someone comes up with a question, the council points at the commissioners point at the health board, everybody points, I go run around in this circle, I get no answers. You're basically telling me to take legal action in order to get public records, and this isn't the way to run government, and even one of your commissioners doesn't understand what appropriations were coming through here. You've got a real lack of communication here. Or it's got the appearance as though someone's trying to cover for someone.
You're misstating what I said. I did not say to file legal action to get public records. I said to file legal action if you want to challenge a claim. Public records, that should be resolved.
Well, I guess we're talking
between
two issues,
you-
Mr.
yeah,
Chairman.
Between you and Celeste and the Public Access Council on a telephone call, I think you could probably resolve that. I tend to think that you redact records and give them. I think that that's the right
That's all I've
answer.
asked for.
And I think that's the right answer, but
And we've been very.
all you have to do is have a
Mr.
phone
Chair.
conference, I think, with the public access counselor, and if the public access counselor says, redact and give them to her, then I want you to give them to her.
Yeah, this body will abide by what the public
And
access
Sherry knows that. I told Sherry I'd give her anything that the transparency law says, but I can't give her things that are illegal to
you-
give her.
and you've
And I
consulted
met with
with
the
the
state
state.
attorney last week at conference
And they
specifically
said-
on this, and they told me I
They said
cannot
no.
do that.
So I think
I'm
that's a
going by
reason to
the
go to
law.
state, I think that's reason for a phone call to the public access counselor with the two of you.
And I would appreciate that that's where you're going with that. So, is that something that we can schedule,
I'll be glad
Celeste?
to. I'll be
Okay,
glad to.
and I mean, I think that we need to handle this sooner because it's been going on for way too long. I wanna work with you.
I wanna work
I'm
with
just
you. Nothing to hide.
asking for public records to actually confirm the numbers that have been paid. And I will give you my blessings once those are given here and confirmed, and we'll all go on our ways, and then I will appreciate everything that you guys do. Right now, it's very frustrating from a taxpayer's position, from where I'm sitting and not being, and being denied wherever I go. Okay, so, I don't have anything else to say
Thank you
right
very
now.
much.
So you guys are gonna get together and make that call, right?
She's gonna call me and we'll see.
Okay, that's good. I think that's the solution.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next thing that we have is handbook adaptations. I know that one of the things that we need to address tonight is the state's new nepotism law that was passed in the last session and signed into law. And I think that we are ready with a resolution for that, and Celeste has some
Actually-
other items.
Right, there's actually two resolutions.
Two resolutions.
This is the same.
Just as a reminder, we did pass an addition to our handbook policy last meeting for IT. Is that, make sure that's the right one?